My name is Norman Pitts. I was brought up in Wood Green, which is in North London, and basically and we came up to Palmer's Green really because the parks and things were better. There were facilities in Wood Green, but Wood Green was always a little bit on the sort of Palmer's Green was a bit posher. I'll be honest, it was a bit posher. I mean, everyone's a little aspirational, and also my father and my bought a model yacht sometime in a second-hand market in East London. It was a very nice sailing boat, about 24 inches long. And my brother, who was 10 years older than me, he used to take me up to Broomfield Park and just to sail a boat on the pond. And the pond there in those days, and I think still now, was particularly just for sailing yachts. I mean, because there was actually a shop in Palmer's Green which sold these yachts, and they were bigger, and they were gentlemen, older gentlemen, very, very seriously sailing these yachts and whatever.
That's fantastic. I hadn't heard about the shop. Could you tell us a little bit?
The shop is where it is near on the triangle near where there's a pub now. I don't know it quite very well, but it was on the triangle, and I don't know, and it might even been a branch of Briggs. It was a sports shop in Enfield. It might have been, but it actually had a little speciality of selling these yachts and things for them, and there was sort of nice stories that if your yacht was becalmed, you had a technique of two people who would get a ball of string each side and walk your boat in. It wasn't an enormous pond, but that was right. And there is a memory of my brother's. Now, it may not be true, because my brother was a great man of exaggeration, that he once fell in that pond while watching the bowl. There's a bowling green on one side, and my father, he once actually walked backwards looking at bowling and fell in that pond. So whether that's true or an exaggeration, I don't know really.
That's fantastic. So you came up to the park and did lots of sailing, and also you came up with a school.
We came to the school because we had inter-school sports. Now, I wasn't the greatest of athletes, strangely enough, but it was in school, and I believe it would have definitely been Glendale, probably Minchington. I don't know if Stationers County was actually involved. They had a sports ground in Minchboy Hill. I don't know if they came, but I know there were several grammar schools or just secondary schools. I think it was only grammar schools. I think we were a little bit exclusive. I hate to say that, but I wasn't a great sports fan. And what I used to do, to be quite on these occasions, was to go along, introduce myself to the form captain, self-appointed, and then I would nip off to Grovelands and go fishing. I said something like that, and I caught out badly twice actually. Once I ran into the geography teacher cycling the other way in his Panama hat and his white jacket, who knew what I was doing, told me to go back. And on the last occasion, I was actually appointed captain, so I couldn't go because people were reporting to me. But they were full sports, they were hurdling, running and whatever, and changing rounds. I remember that.
Sounds great. You also mentioned about coming to Palmer's Green to the cinema.
The cinema was the Queen Cinema, and I believe it's where Waitrose is now, or I may be quite wrong, but it was sitting on the side there. It was a flat-fronted cinema, not one of the big Odeons, but still a proper cinema. And I can remember going there with I was playing Gooseberry actually. My friend was much more advanced than me, had a girlfriend when he was younger, and I was playing Gooseberry as it was called, and we went to see Carmen Jones, which was as you know, it was Carmen set in America, whatever. And the other thing about Broomfield, the Broomfield Museum and House.
Oh yes, could you tell us a little bit about
I believe we even went to the school with that, with primary school, but it was a regular venue for us because it was fascinating, because we were town boys as whatever, but it had a bee's nest or a beehive inside with a tunnel going out, and the bees will come in, you could see the bees behind glass, and we didn't really know what they were basically, and that was a fascinating exhibit. The other thing, I can't remember the other exhibit, but it was a local history museum. Also, I believe it had a small cafe at the back. And I think it also had some sort of clinic. It might have been a postnatal clinic.
It was a mother and baby clinic.
Yes, because I remember quite often when I used to go out there sometimes, and a bit later, in my teens, I used to meet some girls that had been out of school who had children. Because they were quite precocious in Wood Green in those days. And you meet them and they had their prams and their children there.
So they'd been to school with you.
They'd been to school.
They were already having their own children.
Yes, absolutely, yes.
How did you come up to Palmer's Green? Did you come on your own by bus?
Normally, initially when I was younger, my brother and I would go up on the bus, but I would then go out the bus normally, and then later cycle. Basically, that's what she wanted. You'd cycle up there and chain your bicycle to the railings and go into Broomfield House.
Everybody loved that beehive. That was one of the things that
Yes.
everybody's really remembered.
That's right, and also there were ponds outside, rather nice sort of formal ponds and whatever, which I remember very, very well.
Do you remember when it burnt down?
I don't. Well, I do remember when it burnt down, but I wasn't around then. I remember, and I think that was probably 20 or 30 years ago now. And I know they've had an enormous amount of interest to try and revive. It was just by the triangle where I think Starbucks and Multi-York are, was a small department store, and it was called Evans and Davis, and it was on 2 stories, and I don't think they had furniture, but it had general sort of haberdashery and things, and I can remember going in there as late as probably 1972, only when I was married, because it was a small store. I believe it was actually run by the co-op. And I know it had a cafe upstairs and a double frontage, and it would have sold the normal things, menswear, womenswear, and whatever. Not a huge amount, but it was a proper department store.
So you went in there to shop. You quite happily. You thought it was a reasonable shop.
Oh yes, it was. It was quite a reasonable shop. Yeah, absolutely, yes, yeah.
And someone also mentioned that there was a co-op as well. There were 2 different shops. There was Evans and Davis and a co-op. But you...
I believe that there was a co-op, and that I may be wrong. I mean, this is quite a long time ago.
And there was quite interesting person who ran the lift in one of the shops.
Right. I don't remember that. I'm afraid. I'm
you
sorry.
Don't remember that,
No.
What do you think the sort of changes have been in the area? Because you still live quite close by, don't you?
Well, I suppose really it was. I think Palmer's Green, like South, was a genteel suburb, more genteel than Wood Green, and I think Palmer's Green in a way has maintained it, but of course you had very much influence of I think Greek people really, whatever, whatever, and it's much livelier. If you go down to Turnpike, you go down Palmer's Green now, it's all restaurants and whatever. There'd be Greek restaurants, Turkish restaurants, whatever. And that in the others, there weren't very many restaurants because people actually, working class people or people didn't eat out very much at all. But now if you walk down Palmer's Green, you could go to a restaurant every about 100 paces. Yeah.
Yes, that was different. Did you notice when you were young and coming up to Palmer's Green the sort of differences of different peoples?
Yes, yeah. It was more middle class basically. I mean, more middle. Wood Green, I lived on the Knoll Park estate, was run by Artisan General Property Company, and they were houses for workers or whatever. But here it was a little bit more genteel, and it styled itself more genteel.
It is, but we're also looking into the sort of movements of different types of people. I think at some point it was very English, and there were Jewish people who moved in, and then later on you've got Greeks,
Greek Cypriots, of course, and then this sort of wave of progress.
Yes, it's different peoples coming at different times.
Personally, I would associate Jewish people more with Southgate than I would with Palmer's Green, but whatever. But certainly there was a influx of it's Green Lanes itself. The Finsbury Park and Greek people moved out and out as the Jews did from sort of Bethnal Green. I mean, this is a progression.
It's almost like a sort of, what do they call it? It's like a reflex action.
To move out to better yourself. I always say, I once I got to Enfield, I relaxed. I thought, I made it.
Don't have to move any further.
No, I made it. At 22, I'd achieved the ambition of a Wood Green boy to get to be buying a house in there. In Enfield, yes, I was. Yeah, I was a squire. I started as a squire of Enfield. My detractors used to call me.
Oh goodness. Traitor to Wood Green.
Traitor to Wood Green, absolutely, yes, that's right.
Oh, that's lovely.
But I do say, I do remember going to the cinema there. And the other thing, I do actually remember the Cock Tavern, and that is in Palmer's Green, it was in Palmer's Green.
Yes, it was, yeah.
And I only went there a few times, I was probably underage, but it was very smart and upmarket.
Oh, goodness.
Yes, the saloon bar was very smart, had a grand piano, which somebody played, and it really was. I didn't go there often, But I remember I used to go there.
Because that sunk to an
all-time
depth as a Manhattan, didn't it?
Absolutely, but it was a bit like the Green Dragon, which at one time, when I was in my teens, you had waiter service in there and whatever, which you can't imagine now. And this was up to that sort of ilk. It was very, very smart. Oh. And just the other side of the thing was Pitman's College, and it's I forget what it's called. I did pass. It's got scaffolding on it. It was a building, it's called something house, and that was Pitman's College of shorthand. And some friends of mine from Greece, still one of the longest standing friends, used to do shorthand there. And when she was 15, 16, and me and my friend used to sort of wait outside for them to go to a coffee bar with them after that. And that was quite popular, Pitman's College. Was everybody with shorthand typists was your way out of Wood Green in a way.
That's great. You didn't go to the black and white coffee bar, did you?
I went to a coffee bar, and that might have been, it was a coffee bar, it wasn't actually on Green Lanes, it was on one of the side roads, just off the side road. Because the one we used to go was the Amelia, I think the Amelia was at Oakwood, and there was the dreadful Char coffee bar in Turnpike Lane, and the Zambezi in Wood Green, but I was more Wood Green, or I ventured out to Oakwood occasionally to a coffee bar, because these were the places to be in those days.